of this video, you will know the difference between the RNs who lose weight, eventually gain it all back, and the ones that we work with that transform their body and sustain it forever. My name is Ryan Clark. I am the owner and head coach of RN Body Transformations, and I've been a transformation coach for the last 15 years, helping now over 1,000 women transform their body and sustain it forever for the last 4 years, specifically with just RNs. A big key difference between what we do and maybe what everyone else does is we focus on this key element of sustainability. To give you a peek under the hood of how we get the results we do for our clients, the way I like to think of it is it's kind of like a stool. So if you have the seat of your stool is getting to your goal and sustaining it forever, we need to make sure that we have the legs to be able to support it. Now, if you have one leg, what's gonna happen to your stool? It's gonna fall over. What happens if you have two? Maybe a little more solid, but still gonna fall. Only when we have 3 legs working together can you get to your goal. Now, here's the extra piece. The key to sustaining it forever is what your stool is made of. You see, a lot of people have their stool made out of termite-infested wood. And you might be able to sit on your stool for a little bit, but eventually it's gonna give out. Just like how people lose the weight, cool, but then they eventually gain it all back. The difference with this, the visual I wanna give you, is the stool that we make is made out of titanium. And the titanium is the psychology of weight loss. Those 3 pillars are gonna be fitness, nutrition, and accountability. If we can think about fitness, it's gonna be broken down into 2 pieces. So we have a science, and then we have the sustainability, or what I would consider the arts, or we could also call it the psychology, right? And that's what leads to the sustainable piece. But when it comes to the science, it's actually pretty simple, right? We wanna make sure we have high intensity interval training and resistance training. The high intensity interval training is gonna allow you to burn the overlying layer of fat, trim the waistline the least amount of time so that you can spend less time exercising and more time doing whatever else you want. Because I'm sure that if you could exercise for 60 minutes a week instead of 120 minutes to get the same result, probably choose the 60 minutes, right? Second piece being resistance training. We want to make it so that the longer you're exercising, the easier it is to sustain your new weight that you're going to get to. Plus, as you're doing resistance training, you're going to appear more toned faster. So think of it this way. We want to get to the point where it's easier for you to sustain your new weight than it even is for you to sustain your current weight now, which I know sounds like, oh man, that sounds crazy. It's very possible. It just takes time. You're not gonna have it happen overnight, of course. But if you're thinking about it, we do it 2 main ways. Number 1, you're gonna increase your basal metabolic rate, which is just your resting caloric burn, right? Muscle is gonna burn more calories at rest. But secondarily, this is gonna be sustainability. If we can think about a foundational principle of human psychology, it is the simple nature of wanting to get out of pain and go towards pleasure. So, eventually, even if you can get to your goal, all that pleasure that you were getting by getting to your goal eventually goes away because of the law of familiarity. And then what are you left with if you are depriving yourself and cutting everything out? Well, you're left with pain. No wonder 97% of people gain the weight back. Why do they do it? Because they have more pain than pleasure. Now, we're oversimplifying it, but that's the lens I want you to think through. So, if we know that a key to sustainability is the opposite, minimize pain, maximize pleasure. So the key is we have to figure out what are the things you enjoy the most. There's so many ways to get results. And of course we want to do some element of resistance training for the science, but we have to figure out what's going to work best for you based on your lifestyle, based on your likes, your dislikes. To give you some examples, here are some of the variables that we can think through. Number 1 is the type of exercise. So are we cycling? Are we swimming? Are we running? Are we walking? Are we doing a exercise video on TV? Are we working out alone? Are we working out with a friend? Are we working out in a group? Are you doing this on a day you work? Are you doing this on a day off? Is it a weekday? Is it a weekend? Are you eating before? Are you doing it fasted? Then of course we can influence some other details of the exercise like sets, reps, volume, and so on. The key is testing enough stuff and depending on how it makes you feel, iterating on it until you find something that is actually, at the very minimum, neutral, but not painful. And you might be the type of person that's thinking to yourself right now, I will never enjoy exercise. I don't care what you say or do. Well, you might be right, but I've had clients who have said themselves that they're a 1, they're a 2 out of 10 for enjoying exercise normally. Once we can move through some frameworks and test enough things, they move up to at least a 6. And that's like a big increase, right? Because 5 is neutral, 6 is now starting to become pleasurable. I'm not saying that you're gonna be like waking up at 4 a.m., 2 hours before your alarm, ready to work out. That's not what I'm saying. But if we can start making it palatable and minimize the pain, start to maximize the pleasure and have it start achieving your human needs, that's when you start getting pulled to these actions and you no longer have to rely on any type of willpower. Second pillar is going to be nutrition. And of course, there's two pieces again, right? We have the science, and then we have the art or the sustainability or the psychology, which for reference, I believe that real sustainable weight loss is 80% psychology, 80% the art, and it's only about 20% the mechanics, because the mechanics are so well known for a lot of people, and what they're missing, they've lost the weight before, but what they're missing is keeping it off for years and years and years. And if you see any of the success stories below, these are all people that have lost weight and then also kept it off, sometimes for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then I have clients predating when I only worked with RNs that have lost, like Carla, for example, 130 pounds and has sustained it for 7 years, right? Like these frameworks are based in human psychology. They are tried and true. And just like it's worked for them, it can work for you. So if we're thinking about the nutrition, it's actually pretty simple. I follow this idea that I created called the pyramid of priority. So if you're thinking of the base, you need to make sure you have a caloric deficit. Caloric deficit just means you're eating eating less calories than you're burning. With that, you don't want it to be so big to where, yes, you're losing fat, but then you're also losing muscle, and that can lower your metabolism. You probably know people that lost too much weight too quick and then everything plateaus. We don't want that to happen. And then at the same time, we don't want it to be so small to where you're putting an effort and you're not getting any result, or it's very small and you get discouraged, right? The pleasure goes down. We want to make sure it's a perfect range so that we are increasing pleasure, minimizing pain. As we go one step above that, we're making sure that we have the right macronutrient distribution. So enough protein to make sure that you aren't losing muscle and you stay satiated, enough carbs to make sure that you have energy and you don't have brain fog, and enough fat to make sure that your joints feel good and your hormones are regulated to create an environment for fat loss. Now, there are other things above that we can focus on in the pyramid of priority, but we don't start there. The reason we don't start there goes back to the foundational principle, pain and pleasure, right? If we bite off more than we can chew, that's like building a house of cards, right? This is how a lot of people try to lose weight. They build a house of cards and they build it and they're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm good. I'm gonna do it. This time's gonna be different. Let's go. And then what happens is the wind starts blowing a couple weeks later. And the wind blowing could be a combination of things. It could be outside stressors or it could be internal stressors. So for a second, an outside stressor would be like something real is happening, like your work laid you off, or something's actually happening out there that's influencing you. It's a real thing. The second thing is something internal. How many times have you felt discouraged when you hopped on the scale and nothing changed, right? Like I have too. Like we've all been there. If you think about all the times that you stopped a program in the past, it was 99.99999% of the time because of something emotional you felt. Because the reality is, the science is pretty simple. As long as you stick to the science and you kept doing it, you'd eventually get to your goal, as long as you just tweaked it, tested, and iterated along the way. The reason we stop is because of the what? Psychology. So if we can master this part, this game becomes super easy. As we move more to this side, it will become increasingly evident why psychology is most likely the missing link in your body transformation and, of course, sustaining it forever. So if we're thinking about sustainability, what we want to make sure of is that whatever we're doing feels easy. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, hold on a sec, those things don't connect. There's no way I can lose weight and make it feel easy. Well, that's a belief. That's not reality. Because the fact of the matter is, our approach, we start to focus on your nutrition based on where you are today. So I'll give you an example. We start with favorite foods. So like, let's say I have one of my clients, she loves eating French toast. And I asked her on her kickoff call, hey, if you could eat any food every day and you would not feel like you're dieting, right? Because she had tried things in the past and always felt deprived. So what's that food you always wish you could have? She said, French toast with maple syrup every morning. I said, fantastic. So let's start there. She says, what? I can't eat French toast and lose weight. It's like, why not? Totally can. What a belief breaker for her. Because we put that in place, and don't get me wrong, like, number one, French toast isn't magic. Like, of course, on its own, not that great of a weight loss food, if you will, but there are no such things as weight loss foods and not. It's just what everything adds up to at the end of the day. But we have to balance, again, this is the psychology part. So then we just wrap everything else around the French toast. So what she's left with is feeling like, whoa, this is easy. And she's losing weight because she's in a caloric deficit and has the right macronutrient distribution. Now, because she's having so many carbs at breakfast, is she having less carbs later in the day? Yeah, but that's a trade-off that for her works really well. For you, it might be something else. So what we essentially have to do is this idea of test and iterate, right? So what we do is we start where you are, we build that plan, and then based on what happens for the first 7 days, we'll determine what we do the next 7, right? It wouldn't make sense for us to create a 12, 24, 52-week plan on day 1. Because look, I'm not a prophet. How would I know what's gonna happen in your life 4 weeks from now? Because this is, again, not just about the science. You can go to Google right now and type in, your age, the weight you're looking to lose, and the time frame you're looking to lose it in, diet plan, you'll get it. But that's not what this is. This is working with a coach so that we can really hold your hand through this whole experience, knowing how to guide you, helping you avoid the pitfalls, since we've done this with so many people in the past. So we're able to shortcut so that you don't have to spend years trying to figure this out. We can get you there in 12, 24 weeks. Now, of course, we can't speed up human physiology. Like if you got 100 pounds to lose, we're not gonna do that in like 24 weeks. We're not that good. But what we can do is help you through the emotional side so that truly when you lose this weight, you sustain it forever. Hope this is making sense. So back to the idea of the plan. So as we create that plan, the next 7 days, depending on what happens, we pivot it. So let's say that your results, went down a little bit, but sustainability is high. Well, let's leverage the science of weight loss to get you better results while keeping sustainability up. Then let's say the following week, you lose let's say you lose 2 pounds, things are going great. Well, sustainability wise, things went down, but results are like a 10 in that case, right? Well, now we're gonna look to increase sustainability, right? So it's a constant adaptation game. And all along the way you're learning, and every single week what's happening is, it's like we're building a house brick by brick, instead of that house of cards that gets blown over after like 4 or 8 weeks or whatever. We want to build it brick by brick. And the coolest thing about this is it doesn't feel like you're doing hard labor, like you're building a brick house, because every week you're just laying a brick. But then you look back over the 12, 24, 52 weeks and you go, whoa, I've actually come a long way. And what before, if you were to see yourself now at 12 or 24 or 52 weeks, you would say like, oh my God, I could never do that. That's so much effort. But it's not, because you just went up a little at a time, right? Hope this is making sense. The last piece is gonna be accountability. So with accountability, 3 main pieces to it. We have number 1, daily micro check-ins. So try to think of this like if you were a nurse in like med-surg and you had your 4 patients, you are not just, hanging out at the nurse's station waiting until they ring the bell or there's like a code and everyone goes and runs to the patient. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. Every few hours, you go and check on them. Like, hey, how are you doing? You talk to them, what are their vitals? You look at the chart, you do all the good stuff, right? Same with us. Every single day, we are looking at the vitals and asking you key questions. Hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you feeling? What's your stress level? How many hours of sleep did you get last night? What's your hunger level? And then of course, other more specific questions to you as an individual. But what we're looking for is any variation from baseline, because that will give us insight to be able to make necessary changes between the bigger ones if necessary. And then of course, we're there to talk through the day, but we understand like, look, if you're working a 12-hour shift, we don't expect you to be like waiting on our every whim to like answer us back. Second piece is gonna be the weekly ultimate alignment strategy sessions. Now on those calls, that's really an opportunity to do a couple key things. Number 1, celebrate the victories from the past week, and you'll hear it in the name, ultimate alignment. If you're thinking about what happens when you start with your coach, you're super aligned, you're fired up, you're ready. And then what happens during the week? Shit happens, that's what happens. Not every week's great. And then because of that, you feel maybe a little discouraged, you feel burnt out, you didn't get enough sleep. And then what happens is maybe your motivation has gone from a 10 when you started to like a 6. But then you get on that call and everything starts to change. Why? Well, number 1, we celebrate the victories. So as we celebrate the victories, we talk about pain and pleasure. What happens? Wow, your pleasure goes up a lot. Why? Well, because before, just because of what you were focused on, you were experiencing more pain than pleasure, which is what, or for a short time, which is why your motivation went down. But then you got it reframed and you realize, oh man, you know what? My coach really showed me they just brought up like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, my weight only went down 1/4 pound, but yeah, my clothes do fit a lot better this week. And I was a little discouraged because like I had that brownie sundae on Wednesday, because I was like, I didn't eat and I came home from work and there wasn't a lot of food in the house and I just ate it and I felt guilty, but like now I look back at it and I'm like, you're right. That brownie sundae was only like, I look at the math and it's like my coach said that there's 24 meals in a week, right? Or 21 meals in a week if you have 3 a day. I'm just throwing out numbers, right? 21 a week. And I essentially changed one of my meals for something that was less optimal. Well, what's 1/20th? Well, that's 4%. So I was actually on track 96% of the time. Would you be happy if you were on track 96% of the time? Of course you would. But we tend to focus on the negative. That's a human bias. It's normal. What your coach does is help you reframe that. So the second thing we do is we're going to identify the biggest levers. So we're going to put in place essentially the actions that we see that are going to be the least amount of effort for you, i.e. minimal pain, and we know that are going to get you the best result. The example here is like, let's say it's week 1. We know off the bat that there's a couple key metrics we're looking for. For example, some people week 1 are like, all right, cool, what's my exercise going to be? Like, should I go running? Should I like, start weight training? We look at the baseline metrics and we say, well, hold on a sec, you're only sleeping 4 hours a night. Working out's more stress. Let's pull back. Let's not focus on exercising for now. And let's just focus on your nighttime rituals and start getting your sleep together. Because something really crazy is going to happen. When you sleep more, you will be more motivated and more emotionally resilient to deal with the shit that happens in your life so that, again, it's like a force field that you have up so that as you lose weight and as things come to you, your foundation is even more solid. Hope that makes sense. So once we put those pieces in place, it's business as usual, you're recentered, and you're rocking and rolling. The last piece of accountability is the group. So over the last 4 years specifically, we've helped nearly 400 RNs transform their body. It's been awesome. With that, they're all women, right? Between the ages of 35 and 59. And they're all starting their journey, in the middle of their journey, or have successfully gotten to their goal and are now just sustaining it. And the cool thing about that last part, and I mean even the earlier parts, is it's so awesome to be able to be shoulder to shoulder with people just like you through this journey. Because if you're shoulder to shoulder on someone just starting, you can, be able to know that, hey, this person's experiencing what I am, the ups and the downs, and they're really just starting to settle in. If you're in the middle and someone else is too, kind of a similar thing, or maybe you're just starting and they're in the middle and you're like, oh, they're a little bit further than me. So I can see where I'm going and I can start to learn from them. And then we have this idea of like alumni, where it's like, we have people that have been in the group now for years and they are there as almost like the older sisters of the community. And it's cool because even if they're not older than you in age, they might be older in experience and they can share their experiences. So that one, you can be inspired, like, hey, they did it, I can get there too. Maybe they even had harder challenges. So you can say, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. And it's just a really good opportunity to be able to have a new fit tribe. But this idea of you become what you're around. So you probably heard this idea in the past that birds of a feather flock together, right? Where focus goes, energy flows, results soon follow. And if you really want to transform your body and sustain it forever, one of the best things you can do is get around other people that are fit. Now, what happens if you're right now in your life and you're like, oh man, like no one around me is fit? Well, I'm fit. The group, everyone in the group is either fit or getting fit. Hopefully it's starting to make sense how we help our RNs transform their body and sustain it forever. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why RNs? Couldn't this work for everyone? The short answer is yes. But the reason we focus on RNs specifically is because I've identified, after working with almost 1,000 women and having a subset of those women be RNs in the beginning, maybe like 30 or 40, I've noticed that they're some of the most unappreciated, high stress, and also willing to self-sacrifice, put others before themselves. As a result, what happens? They gain weight and let them essentially lose themselves along the way. I can't think of a better subset of women that could benefit from what we do specifically with the psychology of weight loss. Because you'll probably hear me say this 100,000 times. Results are easy. Sustainability is the harder key. So what we want to be able to do is really focus on this game of not getting healthy, but staying healthy. Not losing the weight, but keeping it off. It's the difference between focusing on a finite game, something that ends, and an infinite game, which the goal of the game is just to keep playing. If that sounds good to you, you can go below this video, schedule a one-on-one RN body transformation planning session with me or a member on our team so we can see if you're a good fit to be able to transform with us. I appreciate you watching. I value your attention, and I will see you soon.